Hello. So we are back with another analysis. So we open from the hijack with ace 4 suited, the button calls, and the big blind comes along. We see bet, the button calls, and the big blind folds. So I decided to analyze this hand in PioSolver, but PioSolver is only able to solve heads up pots. But since the big blind's folded anyway, we can kind of treat it like, like a heads up pot. But in reality, it's not really true because when we are c-betting into two people, our range should definitely be stronger. So yeah. Uh, but anyways, we are going to look at the analysis now as if the big blind folded and what we should do. So these are the parameters. This is our opening range and this is the flatting range of the button. All these hands with 50%, there are also possible 3-bets. A little bit of traps with aces, yeah, bet sizes, etc. So one thing we should immediately notice is that we are actually checking a lot. And in when you're out of position, this is actually the good GTO strategy, as you can see. But in reality, betting is often still pretty good because people just under defend a little bit. So it's often better to c-bet more than advised in PioSolver, unless you're playing against a beast of a player who's really good and is going to put a lot of pressure on you because he thinks you're c-betting too much. Yeah. So ace 4 suited is actually bet like 40% of the time, something like this. So it is in our betting range, and as you can see, we actually bet very high. I think this is 90% pot. Yeah, so we really prefer a very big sizing on this flop if we decide to bet. But again, we should be checking very often. As you can see, even pocket jacks, pocket sevens check, even aces checks quite often. I mean, probably deuces is the only hand that's bet basically all the time, and it's not even all the time, it's like only 70 to 80% of the time. So yeah, we should be careful c-betting here. But then again, thinking about the fact that this hand was actually with the big blind, I think I like my c-bet a little bit more, because especially with this hand, because it signifies a little bit of a stronger range. And this hand is actually, it's pretty good here. I think we can stack off. If he raises, we can back jam. But as you can see, when we bet, so this is the sizing we actually used, which is actually a little bit too small. Maybe 90% pot is a little bit too much. I mean, it's hard to know what the perfect sizing is, or I should, like, if I really want to know, I should like add in more sizes, but then the tree becomes really big. But as you can see, if we bet 55, this is 65% pot, I think. Yeah. Villain basically never raises, and if we bet big, also never raises, but if we bet small, he should have a raising range. But as you can see, we shouldn't really be betting small. I mean, there's some hands with that bet, like, as you can see, every hand has like a really tiny fraction where we bet small. So in reality, I would just always see bet big and actually even go bigger than we did. But I mean, it's not that big of a difference. I think if you look at the EV, you can see that the EV of betting 76 is a little bit higher, but it's very small. Nonetheless, I think we definitely should size up a little bit next time. Maybe bet like 6.5 big blinds. Yeah, something like that. So then, so let's continue in the three that we actually followed in game. So villain should be calling most of the time. I mean, he's of course calling every flush draw, calling every set, even these pairs, these small pairs with a spade he's calling, without a spade he's folding them. Yeah, his queen is calling even without any backdoor or flush draw. Then all the suited hands here, they are all folding, unless of course we have a flush draw. Any jack is of course calling. 10-8 has gut shot straight draw, which is calling. Yeah, every pair of course is calling, and even the backdoor not flush draw sometimes calls, but as you can see, the EV of calling is 0.01. It's very marginal. So I don't know, maybe you should just fold. Then again, maybe we are folding a bit too much in that case. Yeah. So you shouldn't be, should actually not fold a lot on this board when in position player bets, and that is actually also why it's a little bit tricky, or what should I say, not that good to bet too much. For example, if you start betting your top pairs like queen jack, king jack, even ace jack, you might be getting in a lot of problems, because what you're gonna do on the turn with jack 8 if like, I mean, a 7 comes, it's pretty tricky, and if you then start check calling the turn, you're really susceptible to huge river bets, and they can bluff you out of the pot often. Anyways, let's continue to the turn. So he called, and the turn was the king of clubs, and this is for sure a good card for our range. As you can see, we have a lot more strong kings than he does, although he still has a fairly big portion of kings. But then again, when you look on the flop, we bet, you see that he's actually folding all these kings if he doesn't have the flush draw. King queen with 2 overs is calling, but as you can see, it's also very marginal. So some people might even fold this. So the king is definitely a good turn, and I can show it here. So we are out of position, and you know, basically every ace, king, queen is very good for us. So also you can see that we bet this king a lot, and that's because it's such a good card for a range. We even bet a hand like 10-7, just somewhat surprising. But then again, if you see here, we actually don't have these hands often. That is because we actually use the big sizing, and for example 10-7, we don't really bet it, we check it almost always. So we are betting a lot here, but in reality we don't have that many hands, you know. If you can see, I mean, here it's like ridiculously low. Like, how many combos do we have? Like 6 if you can combine everything, a little bit more, like almost like 7. That's basically nothing. But anyways, so we decide to bet, and yeah, that's also what we did. And we also bet pretty big, which he uses quite often, betting pretty big, but in reality he actually bets small way more often than betting big, which is kind of interesting. I would think that we bet bigger, but well, in reality, when you have a pretty big equity advantage, uh, we don't have that big of an equity advantage. We want to bet small with most of our range. So yeah, um, we bet very small, and villain called again. And now he is raising, but he's raising some flush draws, especially the backdoor flush draws, not flush draws he's raising. But I wonder, I don't feel like a lot of people do this, because let's say he raises. Oh, but this is all in. He can only raise all in? Why? I guess it is all in. If, yeah, it wouldn't really make that much sense either to have a non-all-in sizing. If you look at this for the we bet, so he has to go at least to 29, the minimum, and then he only has 20 left, and there's already, I don't know how much will be in the pot, like 20, like already more than 60 big blinds. He only has 1/3 pot, so actually raising anything else than non-all-in doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah, for some reason he likes to jam ace 9 always, but like not ace 8 or ace 6 and ace 5, and it's kind of strange. So he calls, and the turn, or the river rather, was, I think it was a club, but 3 of clubs. Yeah, 3 of clubs. And now let's take a look at our strategy. And as you can see, we actually do not like to go all in, which I did. But I thought he was just very heavily weighted towards, you know, Jack X, Jack 10, Jack 8, Jack 9, Queen Jack, maybe even Ace Jack. So yeah, we don't really like to bet go all in with our flush draws. As you can see, ace 3, not all in, ace 4, ace 5, not all in, ace 6, ace 7, sometimes bets, but checking has higher EV, ace 8, ace 9, ace 10. I mean, all these not flush draws, ace king of course has top pair, they don't bluff all in. King 10, king 9, king 8, you know, almost none of them. Like queen 9 does, but it's only as we can see, the EV of bluffing with queen 9 of spades is a lot less than queen 9 of hearts. And the reason for that is actually pretty obvious, and it is the fact that we block so many of his snap folds. If he will often be check, or rather not check calling, but just calling with these kind of hands. And if, for example, if we have the ace of spades, we block so many of his snap folds on this river. So see, we block all the ace 3, ace, we have ace 4, ace 5, ace 7, ace, all these hands with where he has a nut flush draw where he will be calling, but he's snap folding to river bet because he just has ace high. So he's probably not even beating at least few fractions of my bluffs. So that's why this bluff on the river, it's not the best selection of hand. It did work out in this scenario, because again, I think a lot of people just have jack X here and they are going to fold it most of the time. But if you for example look at Biosolver, he is actually folding his jack X most of the time. That's interesting. So the question now becomes, what hands should we be bluffing? And I'm going to go into the 3 where we bet pot on the flop, so we're close to pot. As you can see, we keep betting. We actually bet smallish on this turn. And he again calls. As you can see, he's calling all these flush draws, which we are blocking with our hands. So that's why, like I said, the river bet isn't that good. And then on the river, surprisingly, we actually bet smallish more often than we go all in. It's interesting. And as you can see, again, we don't bluff with the ace of spades. Then what are hands we want to bluff with? So it seems to be more these smaller hands, which also have like a 0 chance of winning a showdown. With ace 4, you might, for example, win from the queen 10 of queen 10 of spades, but even queen 10 of diamonds or hearts you might be winning from. We actually check king check. That's interesting. And I mean, it's surely to go all in when he bets, but he should also always be betting all in. Of course, it's a snap call. We basically call every king, which is a bit crazy, and against a lot of people, maybe not the best idea. So again, let's take a look at what hands are better to triple barrel bluff. For example, 10-8 seems better, but here we do fire off with the spades because they block a lot less. When we have the ace, they actually block a lot of his flush draws, but when we have the 10 of the 10-8 of spades, we block a lot less, because if you can see in his range, he also has 10-8 and 10-9, Jack 10, Queen 10 suited. So these are like the only hands we're blocking, but we are blocking with our ace all these hands, which are a lot more. So yeah. So we actually prefer to bluff with these smaller hands, and I suppose we also triple barrel a hand like 10-8. Well, actually, the thing is, we just don't really bet a lot on the flop, so we should be checking most of the time. For example, maybe we can try something out, and let's say that, for example, so tools or in 3 set strategy and lock notes. So we, for example, bet a lot more these hands, and this is what a lot of people do. So let's say people are betting their king jack, queen jack, ace jack, king jack, queen jack, and jack 10 they might check, but let's say they bet these hands always. So this is correct now. I haven't done this a lot, but let's take a look. So we are, why is it this? Why is it only 75%? Oh, because we don't have the jack, there's no jack of spades, alright, that's the reason. So now we have to let it run again to see the calculations with the, so this will probably take a while, so I'm going to pause and I'll see you guys immediately. Okay, so now as you can see, these hands fall in our strategy of betting like 55 or 65% pot, which I think many people do, especially weaker players. They almost always do this, I think. And so how does villain's strategy change? So as he wasn't raising, now he's raising with basically his aces, which isn't that much. And of course he's also just folding a lot more. For example, these hands now are just a fold, because you know he's betting way too much of his jack X. So yeah, that's basically it. And also the thing is, when it checks now, you see we just bet like a crazy person, and that is because his checking range is just way too weak. He doesn't have any good top pairs in his checking range, so that's basically where he is losing all his money. Not when he's betting with these hands, but when he's checking, because he's not going to have that many top pairs, and if he has top pairs, they are rather weak, which also, they cannot call a bet all in. Well, they could, but you're just bluff catching then, and you're probably going to bring yourself to value town if you check call them all the way. And yeah, the thing is, you cannot check call a lot in this situation. So that is why, if you know someone is going to be betting ace jack, king jack on these type of boards, um, if they check, you should just bet your whole range, bet everything, and use a small sizing, but continue with a lot of things. So, for example, let's say the 9 of hearts, and as you can see, we continue quite a lot on these boards. Let's say, for example, the jack of clubs, this hand is going to, I think we're going to be betting a lot. We also use, we size down on the flop because we want to bet with our whole range, but we fire really big on the turn. As you can see, we sometimes overbet, but we almost always bet like at least 80% pot, something like this. It's 75% here, and not often betting small. Yeah, and when we bet and they call, and the river brings, for example, a brick, 5 diamonds, wait, what, he's leading? Yeah, but basically not really, only leading bluffs. Yeah, but as you can see, it's 0.39% and 0.90%, and that is probably because of I didn't let it calculate all the way through. So he checks, and then as you can see, we bombed the river really big. And the thing is, now we can also, well, of course, the jack, but also hands like 10-9, 4-5, these king 6, even ace 7 is just value bet. It's pretty crazy. This is the weakness of the fact that he's betting all these hands on the flop. This makes his checking range just too weak, and in reality many people will also just bet their nut flush draws. So definitely against many like weaker players, or I mean, can be pretty decent. I don't think, as you saw, we should check 85% of our range. I don't think many people are doing this. So when they do check against people who are probably betting too much, we should just bomb. Well, we bet small on the flop, we bomb the turn, and we especially bomb the river very big. Okay, so that's maybe one thing I didn't address, was, why isn't, let's see, let me take a look. Wait, why isn't it saved? Oh my god, thought I saved it. No. Oh, it's a bit strange. I was really sure I saved it. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, I'll just rerun it again without the node locks, and then I can save it. This will of course take a little bit. But what I didn't address yet, and what I wanted to address, was the fact that what do we do actually when we check with just 85% of the time. And the thing is, we of course we aren't checking just to play a passive check call strategy. We're actually checking to raise quite a lot on these boards. So many nut flush draws, overpairs, even ace jack, things like that. I think they'll have a pretty high check raising frequency. So that's one thing we are going to look at, and then I think we can finish our analysis of this hand. So yeah, I'll have to wait like 10-15 minutes now before solver is calculated, because I don't know if something went wrong when saving it. So we are back, calculations finished, and so let's take a look now. So again, we check almost our whole range. Well, not almost, I mean queens, kings, aces are still bad most of the times. I mean ace deuce is bad, deuces is bad, some 9-8, some ace jack is going to be bad. Most of the time it's checks. So we check, and then villain's strategy should be to bet small most of the time. And as you can see now, he's betting like 55% of the time, and we saw when they bet their ace jack, king jack, queen jack, etc., that we were betting, I don't know, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was more than 90%. And now we don't bet that much at all. So he bets small, and as you can see, we re-raise quite a bit. We actually only fold 30%, so our strategy isn't really that passive when we check. That's like maybe a misconception that's easily made. And as you can see, ace jack, for example, is especially when we don't have the ace of spades, we are check raising quite frequently. Same with ace jack suited, we are check raising all our aces, all our kings, all our queens, roughly half over sevens. If we don't bet deuces, we check raise. Only jacks, which is, you know, the nuts, isn't check raised. And as you can see, ace 4, ace 5, ace 6, ace 3, ace deuce. But ace deuce was mostly bad, but when we check raises. So we even check raise hands like queen 10 of clubs. Even king jack is sometimes check raised. So yeah, it's pretty interesting strategy. Of course, it's a good strategy. In reality, I mean, at the stakes I'm playing, I don't see too many people doing this. So yeah, their strategy is pretty exploitable, and the exploit comes again from firing really big and a lot when they check boards like these. Of course, you gotta know your opponent, and if you know he's a good player who is going to check his ace jack and king jack on this board, you cannot go bananas and bet. But against a lot of players who see bet these boards way too much, you can really exploit them when they do check. So I think I'm going to wrap this video up, and in fact this is the end of the challenge. This is the last video, but I'll most likely continue, or maybe I should make a new challenge. I'm going to think a little bit about it, but yeah, I'm definitely planning on continuing doing these analysis. I mean, I have to if I want to take poker seriously. So thanks again for watching. I'm pleased with the results of this challenge. Maybe it's my opinion now, it's not, I mean, I'm not a that big fan anymore of the approach. I mean, it's probably good in like really severe cases, but I think that working with a more positive attitude, or how should I say it, with more like a reward system than a punishment system, is actually better in the long run. I don't know. Still, a lot of work to do, but we're getting there. Poker is going really good. I'm really enjoying the ride. Most of the time, of course, it's tough. It's mentally also pretty tough, but it's it learns you a lot as well. Learning how to cope with ridiculous runouts and shit like that. Yeah, whatever. I'm just rambling a bit now. Anyways, adios. Thanks for staying with me for this series.